Paranormal in Pennsylvania may discuss topics such as suicide, murder, and other potentially upsetting things. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, and welcome to Paranormal in Pennsylvania,
where we discuss history and hauntings.
Today's story takes us to the middle of the state, to Altoona. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Erica.
Let's get into it. This season, we're being sponsored by our friends at Haunted US. They travel the country bringing you real stories of American hauntings every Thursday at hauntedus.com. So today is Fort Roberdeau, which is no laughing matter.
No, this is a really cool place.
It was really, really cool. And this one is going to be a little bit different than the normal format of like me saying the history and then the paranormal, because you were there for the history. And so if I forget anything, please jump in. But this is one of those places that I think the podcast is so cool. It spreads awareness to other people about these places, but awareness to us as well. I would have never known about this fort if I wasn't looking up random haunted places throughout the state, and then we were able to stop on our way to our cabin weekend.
Yes, I agree. I have never really learned about this one in history in any of my classes at all in college.
Right.
Like, had never had anybody mention this one.
Right. It was super cool. And I expected, honestly, especially based on the Google reviews, we would get to the fort and we would spend like 30 minutes there. But we spent 2 hours there.
We did.
And got an incredible guided tour by such an informative tour guide. I wish I remembered their name, but I don't. But anyways, if you're in Altoona area, Fort Roberdeau, a must-see. It was super inexpensive and super worth it.
Yes.
So the original fort was built in 1778 as part of the Pennsylvania frontier. So it was on the far side, meant to help protect people on the frontier. But more importantly, it was used to mine lead, which was the primary concern there. And it was not a very successful venture. It actually closed very shortly, but it was meant to be supplying lead to make ammunition for the Revolutionary War. And it was purchased by Roberdeau, which is how it got its name. It was also important to the Revolutionary War because not only was it helping to make ammunition and help defend the frontier against the natives that lived there and were trying to reclaim the land, but it was helpful to defend against the Tories, who were loyalists that were springing up in bands trying to attack weaker parts of the Americas, I guess. So the fort would be under the attack from local native tribes trying to take back the land that was originally theirs, or from the Tories coming to just like get rid of the lead mining operation, incite fear, etc. The original fort was made of horizontal logs with bastions in each corner, so it's like a square with like square pop-outs on the edges, if that makes sense to people. And inside there were homes, a blacksmith shop, barracks, a powder magazine, and an officer's house. And all of these are actually reconstructed in the current fort. It's a much smaller scale, they were telling us, but we were able to actually walk into the buildings and see what it would have been like, which was so cool to me.
Yes, I agree. I remember, I think the biggest thing that stuck out to me, my boyfriend Zach is like 6'2", and when we went into the soldiers' barracks, these beds were so tiny.
Yes.
So tiny. And not even just, I think there were 3 like stacked on top of each other, but I'm not even talking about the space in between each bed. I'm talking about like the width of the bed. I was very surprised, but apparently people were shorter back then.
Yes, people were, but I did think about that because I was like, if David and Zach were here, like serving here, because some of the local militia had to rotate in to serve, like absolutely not. And they wouldn't even be able to sit up because their torsos are so long, they would hit their heads.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool. I like anywhere that has reconstructions like that where you can feel really, really immersed in it. So there's some speculation about the actual location of the fort. Some people said that where it's reconstructed is like half a mile away, but we were told on our tour that a local college actually used sonar technology and they discovered the original powder magazine, which was underground, which means that the fort was definitely in that area to some degree. Now, because it's a smaller reconstruction, it definitely covers a bigger piece of land than the reconstruction, but it's definitely in the right spot, which is cool to know.
I also thought it was really nice that the university did that.
Yeah, it was cool.
I really did think, again, like how cool it was that it seemed like the town was super enthusiastic about this. Like they had received funds from the government to reconstruct this fort, which I thought was really interesting. And so the fact that college students were still taking an interest in it, like in modern day, was
and
cool.
I think they mentioned the college happening helping quite a few other times.
Yes.
So that's really cool. It does seem like the locals are interested in it. And you can visit for either a self-guided tour or a guided tour. It's the same price for whatever. There's also hiking trails in the area. And it was raining when we were there, so we didn't do a ton other than just the tour itself. But it looked like it was a really huge trail system, and they also had some reconstructions of how some of the local tribes, Native American tribes, lived. And then there was one other thing that was like on the trail. I can't remember what it was. They said there was a wigwam and something else.
Oh, I don't remember.
Whatever, there's a lot to see there, definitely, and definitely worth it. And I think it was after 2 years or so it stopped being a fort.
Yes.
So
yes.
You can also attend special events there. They said sometimes they have blacksmiths come in and actually use the blacksmith shop. They also have a few different like spooky or paranormal themed events that I'll talk about in the paranormal story. But that's pretty much it for the history. Short-lived, but pretty interesting and an important part of American history nonetheless. So, the paranormal story. We asked our tour guide about the paranormal stuff on the site, and he was weird about it. And I could not tell if they were weird because they thought we were crazy for asking, if they were weird because there is stuff there and they thought we were going to think they were crazy, if they were weird just because it's not a question they expected. I don't know. What was your take?
So what I thought was interesting was I think their focus was so much on not the fort. Like when they talked about the paranormal legends, I also thought that they may have dodged the question a little bit, and I wasn't sure if that was on purpose, but because they talked about paranormal happenings outside of the fort, but in Altoona, which was still very interesting. But I wasn't sure if I thought maybe they weren't allowed to talk, like maybe that was something that they had been told, please don't hype on this.
And I do think that they were concerned that I was recording them because they kept looking, when we asked, they kept looking at my phone, and I had been taking a ton of videos, not of them, just of the fort, because we want content for the podcast. So I was also wondering how much, because we mentioned the podcast.
Yes.
So I'm wondering how much they just wanted to like CYA with stuff. The things that they did say was that there were strange things in the woods nearby. Like they were saying, like at night it comes out.
Right. But we did not figure out what it was.
Right. Or if they were being serious. But
that's the other thing I couldn't tell, is I wasn't sure if the information, not that the tour guide themselves were like lying, but in the sense of like they were kind of telling us like a spooky story, legends from Altoona, but it wasn't necessarily like based in factual things like we do. Right.
And I think what you said about them not being allowed to talk about stuff could be very valid. You know, a lot of the sites, they want to solidify it as a historical site, not necessarily a haunted site, even though, as we know, those things can coexist and kind of help build each other. People become more interested in the history for a site that they wouldn't normally see because they know that it's haunted. We're a perfect example of that. So I think there's a strength to it, but I get why they would want to keep them separate. Especially because the tour guide seemed like a history major or something. Like they were so knowledgeable about stuff.
They knew so many details, and every question that we asked, they had a very detailed answer for. Like it wasn't like, and we weren't asking basic questions. We were, asking specific things. I picked up a pair of clogs.
Yes.
Because they looked so real, and I was like, are these real? And he gave a very detailed answer about, like, they were real, but they weren't from the time period. Like, they were real clogs that they had gotten. But yeah, so the questions we were asking were about very specific items and very specific time periods. And they really just knew everything.
Yeah, they knew everything. There was something on the wall of one of the, and I was like, oh, what's that? And they said, oh, I'm not 100% sure, but somehow it has to do with rolling tobacco and cigars and pipes and stuff. And it's like, there's a million things in each of the cabins. And I can't believe that we were picking these things and they had an answer for everything. And in fact, they were really encouraging us to ask questions, which is why I felt comfortable asking about the paranormal stuff. But
yes.
They were dodgy about it. So there are some reports from visitors, though. Visitors report that there's a shadow figure that is likely a guard that walks between the two posts of the gate. And I think that makes sense. Again, spirits are in death as they were in life. So if that was their job, maybe they died on the frontier there, and so they're still running a patrol.
Does this happen at night, or is this a daytime thing, or is this at all times?
It didn't say when. I did go back and look at all of my videos and pictures and stuff, and I didn't see anything. And I didn't see anything when we were there. I did get the feeling when we were there, like someone was watching us.
Oh.
But I don't know if that was just like feeling like we were in the middle of nowhere and it was kind of weird.
I did feel a little bit like that when we were in the Powder magazine, like underground. But that could have just been because we were underground.
And I said to one of you when we walked underground, because like the tour guide, there's no one there but us and this person who we've never met before. And yes, there's 4 of us and 2 of them are 6-foot+ men. But then it's me and Erica. And he's like, okay, we just got this. Yeah, it's the Powder magazine, and like opens it up. It looks like a storm door, and goes down. And they're like, okay, so go down and I'll turn the light on when I come down. And I turned to either David or Erica and I said, this is how we die. Because it was like, they could lock us down there. And we would have just been the idiots that just walked down there.
You know what? Zach was pretty hesitant, and I wonder if that was what he was thinking too. Because I remember being like, do you want me to go first? Like, are you know what I'm saying? Like, I could tell he was like kind of his. But yeah, it was really dark down there, and it was a very small space. And the whole time I kept thinking, like, what if, I don't know if these were like real explosives, but I was like, no. Okay, well then, never mind. But the whole time,
I'm guessing not.
I hope not. I was like, I hope nothing explodes right now.
Well, I was thinking about that for back then, like, and I know that they said it was underground to protect the fort and stuff, but like, all that stuff being right there.
Yes.
Wow.
I mean, one thing hits it and it all goes off.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So that was a weird thing. So the shadow guard seems like a distinct spirit.
Hi listeners, we're so excited to tell you about our partnership with Haunted US. Haunted US is an online publication that brings you credible articles on the history and specific paranormal claims of haunted locations across the country. We've even used them to research some of our episodes. Visit hauntedus.com for new haunted places every Thursday.
There are also general hauntings that happen there. People report an eerie feeling, which again, we said we both got. You are in the middle of nowhere at this old fort. And when I'm in places like this, I like to try to think of what the people were feeling. And I can't imagine how terrifying it would be with just these horizontal logs between you and the Tories, between you and the local Native American tribes trying to claim back their land. Terrifying. Yes. I mean, really, I get it, I guess, but it's just crazy, especially when you think about the fact that people on the frontier would go there for shelter. So sometimes it was stationed by the militia, or rather it was always stationed by the militia, but there could also be people there that just live in the frontier. It's like, they don't know how to fight.
No. And I thought the most interesting part was when they were talking about people coming to the fort and then once it was safe going back to their home.
Yeah.
I was like, I would be terrified to go back unless the war was officially over. And I don't think that's what they meant. I think they meant like during the war people were coming and going. I would not feel safe going back to my home on the frontier when I've just been in this fort, because yes, there are only horizontal logs, but also there are a lot of people. You're at least getting a sense of community, and then you just go back to your home that is not like, that is really just horizontal logs. Right.
And the tour guide was saying that they used to attack the homesteads, just kind of like make a point of it. So, terrifying. They also say that there's unusual amounts of fog there and strange noises. Now, I'm going to sound so skeptical, but the fog, yes, you are surrounded by all these fields. I think that naturally that could happen. And the strange noises claim, gosh, I feel like a broken record these past few episodes, but I hate this claim. It's so non-specific. To me, it is just people wanting it to be haunted. What are the strange noises? Is it someone screaming, or is it the blacksmith shop working, you know?
Right.
How paranormal is it?
Yes, because people make strange noise, like just regular people make strange noises all the time. So I agree. It's very general, and it doesn't really give way. I mean, it could be the wind.
Yeah. Especially through those buildings built of logs.
Yes.
You know, or something falling in one of the buildings. And it is kind of at like the end of the road, but it could still be like a vehicle or a person. People arrived while we were there. So I don't like that claim. And I think the fog is probably not a really unusual amount, although I haven't seen it. It wasn't. Was there fog when we were there? It was really rainy.
Yes, it was really rainy, and I feel like it was really gray. And so I could imagine that there would be fog, but I don't think there was.
I don't think there was. Actually, there definitely wasn't, now that I'm thinking back to footage, and David shaking his head no as well. So, I don't know. So those are neither here nor there in terms of being paranormal. But I think definitely the guard walking between the posts is paranormal. Another thing that visitors report is catching 2 distinct orbs in photos and videos taken at the site. Specifically, one dark one, almost black, and one light one. And I didn't see anything in the media that I took, but I think it's really interesting, the duality of that.
Yeah, that is. And where are the orbs? Are they in specific spots?
Nope, just throughout, it says.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, I wonder what they could represent. Like, obviously some sort of spirit, but I wonder if one is like I hate to say evil, like a negative spirit, and one is just like a spirit.
One of the, yeah. I think it almost is like the darker one may be someone from the outside who's not supposed to be in there.
That's a good take, because my thought was similar, where it's like, I wonder if the frontiersmen and the people in the fort were like one color, and then the people out, so like the Tories are a different color, like kind of like the blue and the red of the Revolutionary War.
Yes.
So it's similar thoughts.
Yeah.
But who could know?
And it could be, I mean, if the orbs aren't in one specific spot, then it could be various people from both groups rather than it just being one, like representative of one spirit.
Yeah, that's something else that I thought too, is maybe it's like a husband and wife or friends or something, and they're trying to differentiate themselves.
Yeah.
You know? I don't know how many husbands and wives lived there, but could be.
Yeah.
I can't say that it wasn't. And so, aside from those hauntings that are reported from people, the fort does host a variety of Halloween and like paranormal themed events. They have the Halloween event, which is, the tour guide said, meant for little kids, but who knows? When
they said that the Halloween event was for little kids, that's when I was like, oh, are the legends that you've been telling us also just for little kids? You know what I mean? Or like also just legends. Right, and they did say, oh, and you can't be here at dark because it'll get you from the woods. And then they were like, and that's what gets the kids at the Halloween event. But it was like, it seemed so serious. Yes. And then all of a sudden like, oh, but that's for kids. That's kid stuff. Yes. And I was like, we have a paranormal podcast. You're not going to look weird to us. Right. And so, yeah, it would be interesting to attend one of those. They also have alien-themed events, which I would like to attend, because this is towards the middle of nowhere, like the Pennsylvania wilds area, where we do see an increase in cryptid and potential alien activity. Right. So I think it would be cool to attend both of those. They seem to be run by volunteers. I would just like to see what they say at them. Yes, I'd be curious to see how they talked about the fort in those terms. I think that would also give more credence to, is this person not allowed to talk about the actual paranormal happenings? Because now that you say that, I was thinking, are they not allowed to talk about it because they don't want it to be labeled like a haunted place? But I also wonder if, like when we went to Nemacolin Castle,
they wouldn't talk to us about the hauntings because they wanted us to come back.
Yes.
That is a very good point. I didn't consider that. But overall, I think I would say between the shadow figures and the orbs, it's definitely haunted. Some of the other stuff like strange noises, eerie feeling, fog, I could take or leave that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that makes sense. I'm surprised that there's only one report of a guard walking back and forth there, but because there were so many tradesmen who worked there, and blacksmiths in particular, that I thought that was interesting that there was only one, or there's only one sort of distinct spirit being mentioned.
I thought so too, because even when we were there and we all stepped up to like look out where they would fire their guns out and you could see out from the fort, I was thinking like all four of us fit looking out there. And so imagine how many people must have been there and been side by side.
Yeah.
And the tour guide was even saying that it was a dangerous business to be out on the frontier because of medical reasons aside from these attacks.
Right.
There, you know, you could die of a variety of things. And yes, they had food and stuff, but it's like back in 1778, you cut your foot open and you could die. You know, you get a tooth infected, you could die.
Yes.
So there must have been deaths reported there, although it didn't say anything about it on site, and I didn't find anything online about a number of it.
Interesting. That is very interesting to me. I feel like that is kind of an important aspect of it.
Yeah, I wonder maybe they didn't keep records or they were trying to cover it up when it was a lead mine, because like also lead. So
yeah, I wonder where Roberdeau.
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 I can't remember how it was pronounced.
No, I think you're right though. You said Roberdeau, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm wondering where his spirit is currently.
I thought about that because it didn't seem like he was actually there for very long, and it said that he was just like an honorary commander of the American Army.
Yeah.
Remember, because the tour guide was like, if you had money, you could just like buy a title. So
right.
I think maybe
that's what it was.
He had enough money to create this fort, so he got a title, and then he probably lived a cushy life.
Right.
Financing other failed ventures.
Right.
I don't know. But yeah, I think it's really interesting. Would you go back?
Oh yeah, I would. I do think going back for the Halloween or Alien events would be really fun. Just to see what they're like. And honestly, that tour guide was so nice. I'm sure that they would be there again, and because they seemed very invested in this fort, which was really cool. So it would be good to see them again, to be honest. But yeah, I love visiting places like this. And if we were to go, I don't know when the Alien events take place.
I think there's summer.
I was going to say, if it's in the summer and it's nice, we can also do the hiking spots.
That's true. That was a missed opportunity that I would have loved to do, but the rain. And we were honestly pretty lucky. It started raining really heavy as we were leaving. But I would love to go back. I would love to do a formal investigation here. I think anywhere that you can be really immersed in at least how the life used to look, you're likely to get spirits to interact with you if you're there, because they're more familiar with the surroundings versus a place that used to be a Civil War hospital and is now a hotel, for example.
I just had a thought. We learned that the buildings that were in this fort back in the day when it was actually a fort they may not have looked like the ones that we saw, because the buildings that we saw were actually modeled after another fort, because nobody took pictures of the inside of this fort.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's why there's not a lot of distinct spirits, because the surroundings may be unfamiliar. Like the buildings inside might be unfamiliar. Maybe they didn't look like that.
That is a really good point. That is a great point, because the tour guide said, we know that there is these places, like we know there was a blacksmith shop, but we don't know what it looked like for certain. So that could be a really good point, actually. I wonder if that's why we see the spirits interacting with like the edges, because the walls and stuff looked the same.
Yes.
So because there was that drawing of it. So I wonder if that's why we see it interacting with like what's familiar. That's a good point.
Yeah.
I would personally love to do a full-fledged investigation here. I think it would be absolutely terrifying to be there at night, just the 3 or 4 of us if Zach came. But I think it would be super cool, especially because it's big, but it's not so big because it's so open. It's not so big that you would have to be like, wait, what are you doing in there? Like, I think we could see, especially if we had like sensors in each room.
Yes, and I do like the fact that it's not enclosed. So if at any point we get really freaked out, then we just go back to our cars. Like, I like having that sort of safety net. I think it would be interesting.
Yeah.
So interesting to try to communicate with anything that might be there.
Yeah. This is one where I might reach out because I think they could be amicable to it.
Yeah.
And hopefully they see this podcast and feel happy and that we are giving them some publicity, because it was really cool, and I think it's worth your time to stop. Even if you don't want to go in the fort and just look at the like little museum off the gift shop, it's really cool, but it is cash only. So jot that down. We would love to go back. Thank you for tuning in for this week's episode of Paranormal in Pennsylvania, where we covered Fort Roberdeau, one of the smaller forts, but still important. Tune in next Thursday to see what hauntings we discuss next. Stay spooky.